else. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I was wondering, for cases like that, especially in our CS or in our first couple of years practicing, how do we know exactly which areas we're required to get more CEUs or certificates or training in, and which ones just having our Cs qualifies us to practice in?
Oh, that's an excellent question. And my suggestion to you would be to look at the caseload that you're working with, and then that's where you decide where you go. Nobody says that you have to get CEUs in a particular area. But let's say that you're this SLP that's working in this facility, and all that, you know, they're not trained in, you only have one course in dysphagia, but your facility has a lot of clients with dysphagia, then you might want to continue to become more competent in the area of dysphagia. So what I do is, like, when I go to ASHA, I know I got to get 30 over a 3-year period. In fact, I get way more than that, so I always get an ACE award. They give you an award if you go above the number of CEUs you get. But because I teach neuroanatomy and I teach adult courses, I always go and get my CEUs in that area. I rarely go do anything in child language or ARTIC anymore because I don't teach those courses. So the ASHA doesn't tell you, like, what areas to go get competent in. It just needs to be in areas in speech, in the profession of speech language pathology. Does that make sense? If I've answered the question. Okay. Kelly, you said you also put 1S? One what? Okay, talk to us, Kelly. Then tell us why you did that and read it to us. Because I keep... Okay.
It says, individuals who have knowledge that a colleague is unable to provide professional services with reasonable skill and safety shall report this information to the appropriate authority, internally if the mechanism exists and otherwise externally. I said that because the director knew that she did not have that skill. She was not competent in that area.
Okay, but in this case, the SLP is being forced to provide services in an area where she's not competent, and the director is the person who's not being ethical. Now, if the SLP provides those services, guys, would you say that she's being ethical? That's a yes or no. Everybody, yes or no. Would it be ethical for the SLP? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But the director should be reported too, because she's telling the SLP to wing it. Oh, yes, so go ahead.
I was referring to the supervisor. I did the unethical thing for both of them.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, so you're right. That the supervisor should report it. Well, is it report? Is that what you read? Because I got to pull it back up and read it again. Let me see. Let me see what S says again. And then Denise will look at yours, and then we'll talk about solutions. Let's see. So let me look to see. Because I think the way it read, I thought it may not apply because the director herself would not report something that she's telling the girl to do. Kelly, read it again because I can't find it. My thing keeps going away.
Yeah, what I was saying is that was the fix. That she should have it may not apply, but it says individuals who have knowledge that a colleague is unable to provide professional services with reasonable skill and safety shall report this information to the appropriate authority internally if mechanisms exist and otherwise externally. But since it's herself, she's not going to report it to herself.
Yeah, she's not going to report it to herself, and she's not going to report it externally because she's making the SLP provide. She's the one that's saying just wing it. Now, what that SLP should probably do is report her to the ethical board. Okay. But, yeah, I see what you're saying, but I don't think it applies because the person that's in violation would be she's not going to report. And the only reason that the director would report is if the SLP agreed to do the therapy, and the director saying, "No, you're not competent in that area, but you're doing therapy anyway, so that's a violation." Okay. Let's see, Denise, what's yours? Denise?
I'm sorry, I was trying to get off the mute button.
Okay.
I'm trying to go around my thinking. It's under Principle 4, which is talking about the dignity and autonomy of the profession and the profession's self-imposed standards.
Okay.
And it's Rule B, which basically says, individuals shall exercise independent professional judgment in recommending and providing professional services when an administrative mandate, referral source, or prescription prevents keeping the welfare of persons served paramount. And it seems to me if I'm providing a service that I don't feel I can provide just because someone's telling me to do that, then I'm not exercising independent professional judgment because I'm following a mandate.
Okay, I actually agree with that too. I agree with that too. So we've seen that several principles have been violated and several rules in this case. So Group A, what is the solution?
The solution that we came up with was the supervisor should not assign clients to the SLP when the SLP needs designated training in order to work with those clients. The program director should appoint the assigned 5 patients to another SLP that works at the facility or seek out opportunities for all the SLPs to complete a dysphagia training program. The program director should consult with their supervisor and determine the best course of action for getting the dysphagia treatment for the SLPs. Perhaps the facility could have their own staff teach it, or apply for a grant, or even contact the vendor that has supplied the equipment and come to the facility and teach the course. This would coincide with their service agreement with the equipment.
Okay, so good. That's what the program director should do, but what should the SLP do? Because she's in a situation where she's being told to do something.
She should notify her supervisor's superior and contact them and let them know what's going on and what the best course of action would be.
Okay, very good. Anybody else have any additional solutions? Everybody good with that? Okay, well, let me just say to you, these ethical cases, they come from Panbacker's book on ethical cases. But I actually had a TSU student who graduated, a graduate of TSU. She lived in Georgia. She worked for a skilled nursing facility or a company of some sort, and they wanted her to do things that were unethical for billing purposes. And she called me and I said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, if I were you, I would quit the job and report the facility. And she actually quit the job and found another job. So you got to be very careful because there will be, sometimes you're in a situation that you actually need your job, but what the job is asking you to do is inappropriate. You're bound by the code of ethics to report when there's an ethical violation, and you just have to really think about whether or not it's worth you losing your license. Okay? All right, let's go to, oh, really, Nicole, talk to us. Yeah, you can lose your job, but the question is you can lose your license too. Nicole, what happened? Tell us about yours without giving us any names.
Oh, okay. Well, she's been an SLP for a while, but a similar situation happened in Georgia, actually at the hospital where she was working, where they were billing for services that didn't actually take place.
Wow.
And she did not do it. Yeah. Like the FBI was interviewing people at the hospital. It went, yeah. Yeah, so it was pretty bad. But then she also got in a situation more recently, and it was a supervision issue where the company was telling her she had to supervise X number of SLPAs, and if she wasn't at that same site as them, that is okay. And That's not what the Tennessee law states.
No, because you can only
It's kind
supervise
of
3.
unclear. What did you say?
You can only supervise 3.
Yeah, she was supervising a total of 4.
Oh yeah, she's in violation of licensure law.
Yeah, and she told them that, and they wouldn't resolve it, and she quit.
Yeah, she did the right
She
thing.
reported it.
Oh, good. Very good. Okay, good. This is ethics case A. Let's move on to B. All right. Second group.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I will read the case for B. The hospital setting is using an electronic network to store patient information. A hospital supply company is contacting families of patients seen at your hospital in an effort to sell various products. According to the family members, the representatives appear to have information about each patient's condition. You suspect that a breach of electronic security has happened. I'll start off with the principle and rule. The first principle and rule that we came up with is saying that principle 4, rule P,
Okay, go
has been
ahead.
violated. Individuals making and responding to complaints shall fully comply with the policies of the Board of Ethics and consideration, adjudication, and resolution of complaints of alleged violation of the Code of Ethics. And it was rule 4. I'm sorry, it was rule M of principle 4.
Okay, so wait a minute. Wait a minute. What's principle 4 again? Because I keep having to pull it up, but it keeps going away. Go ahead. What's principle 4?
Individuals shall uphold the dignity and autonomy of the professions, maintain collaborative and harmonious interprofessional and intraprofessional relationships, and accept the profession's self-imposed standards. And I read the wrong rule. The rule is M.
Okay, so what's rule M?
Rule M in this case, individuals with evidence that the Code of Ethics may have been violated have the responsibility to work collaboratively to resolve the situation, where possible to inform the Board of Ethics through its established procedures. Basically saying where there's an information that has been shared some kind of way, and once the SLP now has knowledge that, you know, the report must be filed in some kind of way, we have that, you know, obligation. That was the first rule and the principle. All right, who has the next one?
I can go next. So the next principle and rule that we discussed about being violated is principle 1, rule O. And that reads, individuals shall protect the confidentiality and security of records of professional services provided, research and scholarly activities conducted, and products dispensed. Access to these records shall be allowed only when doing so is necessary to protect the welfare of the person or of the community, is legally authorized, or is otherwise required by law. So basically, people should only be able to access our patients' records if it's necessary to protect the welfare of the person or the community, or is required by law. And in this situation, that is not the case.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Could you hear me? I'm sorry. I was talking and I lost. Okay. So both of those rules, I think, are principles and rules are valid. Any other rules and principles? So this is like all this the medical information is just out there. What would you do? What's the solution?
So our group felt that the SLP should bring the situation to their supervisor's attention, and that also
Denise, I lost you.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
I got cut off my phone. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hello?
And the other thing that our group said was that perhaps the SLP should contact the patient to inform them that their HIPAA rights had been violated, and if they want to take action. But that might also come through the form of the supervisor. Something similar to this happened to my daughter's records through TEIS.
Wow.
Someone had left a computer somewhere, a laptop, and they thought that the files could have been accessed. And so a letter was sent to me saying that my daughter's information had been compromised and alerting me about that, and that I could contact them if I wanted to pursue anything further.
Okay.
So those were our solutions.
All right, that's excellent. And something like that happened to my son at Centennial High School and the students there. Somebody was working on their dissertation, and they compromised the records some kind of way. The information about students was leaked. And so the school did contact us, and they also gave us an option because Social Security numbers, things like that were also leaked. So they gave us the option of doing, what's the name of that company? Identity Lock or something. Whatever. They bought a subscription or something to this identity theft company. What's it called? LifeLock? Something like that. To make sure that they protected their students to the best of their ability. Anybody have any questions about this one or any additional information before we go to the next case? Okay, let's move on. Ethics case C.
Okay, that is our group. And so the situation was that a speech-language pathologist writes a speech-language evaluation report on a client who was observed and tested by a speech-language pathologist who suddenly resigned and left the area without writing a report or filing the test results. So the principles being violated, the first one would be 4C, and so that one states that individuals who hold their Cs may delegate tasks related to the provision of clinical services to aides, assistants, technicians, support personnel, or any other persons only if those persons are adequately prepared and are appropriately supervised. The responsibility for the welfare of those being served remains with this certified level. So basically that the person can't just leave and then leave the responsibility to SLPA or somebody who's not really trained, that you need to stay there and supervise those services. The other rule that was violated was 1Q, where individuals shall maintain timely records and accurately record and bill for services provided and products dispensed, and shall not misrepresent services provided, products dispensed, or research and scholarly activities conducted. So basically that if you're going to do an evaluation, and especially if you're going to bill for that evaluation, that the report needs to be written and recommendations need to be made to the client about the results of that report so that the next SLP can just pick up from there and provide treatment without having to redo the evaluation. So those were our thoughts on that dilemma.
Okay. Anybody else have any additional thoughts? Those are good. But anybody have any additional thoughts on this or any additional rules? Oh, that's LeJune, guys. Let me take this in case she wants to tell me something about a contract. Hold on for 1 minute. Okay.
The ones that we mentioned were 4C. Maybe, I don't know. And, 1E. Sorry, it was 1E. I don't know, we're sort of winging it. Violating scenario 1 right now. And then 1Q. No, but we should have, Kelly. Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, guys,
I knew there was one about not leaving.
Okay, but guys, let me ask you this. All right, what's the basic problem with somebody else writing your report? All right, what's the problem with you writing somebody else's report? I mean, now you think about this. Somebody else did the evaluation, but they want you to write up the results. What's the problem with that?
I think if you're only looking at a score.
Bias.
Okay, raise your hand because this is very important because we'll do one more of these and then we'll finish in the next class period. But since I had two people talking, Jill first, go ahead.
I mean, I think if you're writing a report solely based on scores on a standardized assessment that somebody else did, and then you're making just assumptions based on a standardized score, you're missing a lot of information about the client. So if you haven't actually had an interaction with that client, I don't think your report will actually be complete or accurate. And I know this happened at the school system where I was at a lot, where one SLP would kind of come in and maybe administer the TOLD P or the Cell 5 and then give the test protocol to somebody else to write it up. And I just thought that report is just not going to be very complete or accurate on that client if you're doing that.
Okay, all right, very good. That's one thing, but there's another major problem with this, with writing up somebody else's results. And I was looking at some of y'all's responses, and Damien says we can't validate it. What do you mean by that, Damien? Because that is absolutely right.
What I mean by we can't validate, if someone else writes a report or someone else, in their case, just jumped ship, how are we to take credit for what it said? If this person had a personal problem or something against this particular client, at that point, then we take on the legal responsibility of saying that we are affirming that this test is valid and we don't have a clue to what information is actually true or not.
That is so true. Guys, I want you to be very cautious about looking at what somebody else did and then writing it up unless you were there, because that person might have been somebody that just wasn't even competent. What if that person did not score correctly, or what they actually observed wasn't really what they observed? Okay, so how do you know that what that person actually did was correct? So you never write up somebody else's stuff, because Damien has a point. You are legally bound. Once you start putting stuff on paper and you don't know because you weren't there, then you're saying that you agree with what those results are. So you have to be very careful about doing that. Now, if you observe somebody, if you were there as part of the evaluation, and even then, they need to write up their own stuff. Anytime you put your name on a piece of paper, you are legally bound to what you have signed. That's why, as a supervisor, I will never allow you, I will never sign my name to anything unless I agree with what you have in writing. That's why I have made people write over and over. I'll say, no, this not represent, I'm the person that's responsible for the client. And so therefore, even though you may have done the evaluation as a student, it's my C's that's on the line. So what you got to do, this is totally unethical because you don't know that the results were valid from the beginning. So you never write up something that somebody else has done. Now, what would be your option? What's the solution to this instead of writing this up? What's the solution? Reassess.
Yeah. The person who's actually going to write it up needs to use different measures, different assessments, do a new sample informal assessments with the client and not bill them twice.
That's right, and you could actually, if you wanted to redo the assessment, you could, because also it's something called, you don't know what their level of performance is at that point in time. Have you ever taken an exam and this was just a bad day for you? Well, I have. Now, not one that I actually studied for, but let's say I went to do like a standardized test, and it's just a bad day. The results that I get, you know, may be because of the fact that I just wasn't feeling well. But if I went back and took it again, I might do a lot differently. I might do a lot better. So therefore, even though you see the test protocols, you don't touch them. They are a matter of record, but you don't write it up. You just reassess. That's what you do. Okay. I want to be very clear on that because you guys are getting ready to go out and be professionals. And like you said, somebody may have left something. Well, if they left it, that's their mess. What you're going to do, you don't have to you might not have to re-give a standardized test, but you definitely need to go in and do some criterion testing. And you could actually, if they say on that standardized test that a child is performing like, or you know, whoever your patient is performing poorly in an area, then reassess that area by doing your own assessment or pulling another measure to assess those skills to see, in fact, if that is true on the day and time that you're seeing the kid, okay, or the patient. Everybody got it? Yeah, do your own, yeah. I mean, everything you said. Okay, we're going to do one last case, and then we'll finish the other ones next week. I'll be in Colorado next week. Jill, I'll be in Colorado next week. Actually, in Colorado Springs. My brother's retiring from his position at the Air Force Academy. So I may give you a call while I'm out there, girl. So, okay. All right. Let's do case D. Now, as long as we're not going for a hike in the mountains where I'm afraid of heights, but we can definitely go out and have something to eat. I'm going to be there for a week. Ha-ha. You're in Springs, right, Jill? Or are you in Denver? Where are you? You're in Springs. Okay, I'll be in Springs. All right. Okay, just trying to get my little social thing on before I get out there. Okay, let's move on. This is the last case, guys, and thank you for staying a little later in class. All right, whoever's group D, let's go.
Okay, this is Kelly, and I'm going to speak for Linda and Lindsay because they're both mobile. The scenario, a speech-language pathologist disregards a 48-year-old man's complaint of pain and hoarseness. He was referred for trial voice therapy. 5 years earlier, the man was seen by an otolaryngologist who reported the presence of a normal-appearing larynx. And we said, Principle 1, Rule A, which says, sorry, I got to scroll up. Individuals shall provide all clinical services and scientific activities competently. Rule B, Principle 1, individuals shall use every resource, including referral and or interprofessional collaboration when appropriate to ensure the quality services provided. We also said 1H, which said individuals shall obtain informed consent from the persons they serve about the nature and possible risks and effects of services provided, technology employed, and products dispensed. This obligation also includes informing persons served about possible effects of not engaging in treatment or not following clinical recommendations. If diminished decision-making ability of persons served is suspected, individuals should seek appropriate authorization for services such as authorization from a spouse, other family member, or legally authorized appointed representative. And 1M, individuals who hold Cs shall use independent and evidence-based clinical judgment, keeping paramount the best interest of those being served. And we said Principle 4, Rules A and B. Let me scroll down. Individuals shall work collaboratively when appropriate with members of one's own profession and or members of other professions to deliver the highest quality of care. And B, individuals shall exercise independent professional judgment in recommending and providing professional services when administrative mandate, referral source, or prescription prevents, keeping the welfare of persons served paramount. I think that was all of them.
Okay. Now, yeah, that's a lot. Okay, so basically, yeah, I agree with some of those, but what's the basic problem with this case?
The complaint is pain, so really needs the person needs a referral to an EMT, and 5 years, that's too far. That's too far away.
That's right. That's right.
So
yeah,
that information is not valid anymore.
Right, and the fact that this SLP is disregarding this based on the earlier reports is totally inappropriate because that person could have laryngeal cancer or something. And you can't do therapy without being cleared by an ENT. You guys do know that, right? If anybody that has a voice problem needs to be referred first by an ENT before you touch them. And so that this person doesn't sound like they know what they're doing. So, yeah, good. Kelly, go ahead. Your recommendations, your solutions?
The recommendation was to refer this client to an ENT for evaluation.
Yes. Okay. And the fact that this guy refers for child voice therapy tells us that he may have some problems with competence. I mean, at the end of the day, what if okay, now this is an adult, but what if it is cancer? Or what if it is something that requires immediate medical care? He could do more harm to this client by doing voice therapy. Okay, so the goal here is, and that is malpractice, and so you're right about that, Sophia, and this would be reported to the ethical board. I mean, that's just crazy to refer for child voice therapy without knowing what you're dealing with.
Yeah, I wasn't sure who referred the client for the voice therapy.
Well, he said, I think the SLP, that's the way I'm reading it. Is that the way you're reading it? An SLP discards a 48-year-old man's complaint of pain and hoarseness. He was referred for child voice therapy. So I'm assuming that it's the SLP who refers him for child voice therapy. But then that could be ambiguous, because it could be that the man was referred to the SLP who just disregards the complaint of pain and hoarseness. How are you guys reading this? I didn't write this, but I do see a problem with it.
I read it like the latter. It's because it sounded like she was completely dismissing the person, so I wasn't sure who did the referring, but I didn't read it as the SLP, but maybe that's what it meant.
Okay, well, how did you guys read it? Because it could be read both ways, but I didn't realize that until you just said that. Okay, you read it as the latter. I read it as he referred him for child voice therapy. Okay. But then the MD 5 years earlier, but he was seen by an otorhinolaryngologist 5 years before, so there's no evidence that that person referred him to the SLP. Well, either way, the thing to do is not to disregard it, but to do what? To refer him back to the otorhinolaryngologist so that he can be cleared for therapy. Okay. We had a student at TSU who was consistently hoarse. She was in the speech pathology program, and we kept referring her, and she refused to go to the ENT. But all you can do is refer. And then once you get a report clearing, then you do therapy. Okay. All right, guys, so we got through cases A through D, so then we got E, F, G, and then H to do next week. We'll do those at the beginning, and then go into risk management, how you can keep yourself from being sued, and what you should put in place so that you don't have to worry about being sent to the ethical board. Okay? Does anybody have any questions for me before we end this class tonight? Oh, you definitely have class. I'm just going to be in Colorado, and it hit me because Jill is out there, and I'm going to be in Springs. Yes, I'm going to fly out on Tuesday, and I'll be there till Sunday, so I'll be teaching I'll just be teaching from Springs. That's all. Okay. All right. Well, if no questions or no comments, then you guys have a great night and a great weekend. And what I will do is keep the ones that we're working on getting you placed. I'll keep you informed. As soon as I hear something, you'll hear something. And Nicole, I'll go on now. Actually, I can't print down the forms to sign them until tomorrow, but I will print them off, sign them, and then have them scanned back to you. Okay? All right. Good night. Thank you, guys.